There's a lot of research that demonstrates that learning is best initiated on a bite-sized instance. So even though we're noticing a high influx of data that says employees want training, they also don't need to be inundated with weekly series, right? The turnaround to implementation is really challenging. And so there is data to show that about 36% of organizations engage in learning at least once a month. And statistically, 25 to 30% of employees want learning at least on a quarterly basis.
Hey, I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is the Founded in FoCo Podcast. And every episode, we get a chance to talk to an innovative mover and shaker doing cool things in and around our community. And today, we are here with Brittany. Brittany, introduce yourself. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me. And hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Dawson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Brittany Dawson Coaching, where I am on a personal mission to unlock the best in talent through energizing and actionable workshops. And so I do this primarily through facilitating professional development, coming in and giving inspirational keynotes, to even supporting the enablement and training of your employees. And I just care so deeply about this because there is a lot of data that highlights the connection between high quality training, performance, and productivity. And in fact, there is a recent research study where they found, according to research.com, that over 68% of employers and employees prefer to either learn or train within the workforce. And so I'm really passionate about bringing that training to light and life within organizations by making them fun, but also energizing and actionable so that you can actually apply the methods to your workflow or whatever is most proximate to you.
So we're all kind of familiar with the idea of like, okay, we're going to go to this workshop, we're going to go to this seminar, we're going to go, travel to this conference. Tell me about, is there a methodology for applying that learning on a smaller scale day to day in the workplace, as you said?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we think about just the process of learning, I like to think of learning as a connection of the inputs and the outputs. So looking at an organization, for example, you might have those required professional development trainings that your staff might have to engage in, right? To even just from a team level, topics of training that are most proximate to you, right? Maybe your company is rolling out a new strategic plan, or maybe you and your team are engaging in a brainstorming session to bring out ideas to life, right? And in many regards, those are the inputs that organizations complete to up-level their team. However, in my experience, and after having conversations with leaders, there is a common experience of some of that training feeling a little stale. And you might have that initial resurgence in the top of the year or in a strategic planning session, but the consistent inputs to maintain that series of training might not be consistent. So where I come in is I support organizations and talent to create that culture of continuous learning. And rather than just those one-off solutions, you're really developing what's the best workshop approach, our best training approach, to where we're not just solving this one problem, but we're creating a series of actions for folks to feel successful in their job, but get the training to enable them to get there.
I love the idea of building learning into part of the process rather than having it be this sort of, okay, you get this knowledge, this awesome tome of knowledge from maybe it's a book, maybe it's a conference or a seminar, you've got all the PowerPoints, you're super excited to instigate change. And then the reality of the day-to-day mundane hits you, and you just fall back into the same old repetitive habits. Have you seen local companies that are successful at implementing this change learning on the process as they go?
Absolutely. So one recent example, I had the pleasure of facilitating a strategic planning workshop for the Colorado Nonprofit Association. And the session was geared towards nonprofit founders and leaders who were in various strategies of their strategic plan. And what I love the most about not only my facilitation with this, but the model of the Colorado Nonprofit Association is that they offer continuous learning opportunities, not only for those ad hoc meetings and sessions that might focus on one particular topic, but they also offer a series of learnings within the community so that you're not only building off of that initial idea, but you're implementing that change specifically for your organization. And so, for example, the recent research from SHRM, if anyone is familiar with SHRM, they highlighted that about 50% of millennials feel as though they want to get training at their work, but it's not always available. And in connection to that, 44% of Gen Zers state that being connected with continuous upskilling options at work is a determining factor for them when they're finding positions. So as we can see, the data really highlights that training is a necessity. However, due to a variety of factors, whether it's budget, timeline, strategic initiatives, those long-term skilling solutions are not always available. So when we think about what does it actually look like to unlock the best in your team, it first starts with identifying what are those gaps and opportunities to really bring out the best in your team. The second consideration is to think about what has already been done, and is there an opportunity to deepen that practice within that system? And my third and favorite, what would it look like to actually involve and ask your employees what type of training and skills can best benefit them? As we know, we are in a very uptick of an upskilling and reskilling boom that can really make a difference in bringing that top quality talent, not only at your company, but building that pipeline overall. So very positive way to build that efficacy and unlock the best in your talent through that training and professional development.
I'm curious if you've seen as an experience of the maybe older generations are sort of pushing back on this, or if they're really taking this into account of like, yeah, we actually don't have to go to a conference. We can just pick up a Skillshare membership, or we can go to YouTube, or we can go to the library and download all their cool workshops that they have.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Nick. And I'm a nerd out a little bit. Okay. My number one strength is actually I am a philo-math according to the High Five Strength Assessment, which is just someone who likes to learn. And so in my own self-learning, what I've noticed is that regardless if someone is a Gen Z or a millennial, like a Gen Xer, right? We are all in this process of continuous learning. And interestingly, one of my former employers, for example, cultivated that connection of continuous learning by incentivizing learning through professional development stipends. And I found that to be so rewarding because we not only were able to choose our own learning path, but even up to our executive director to external partners, we had quarterly learning lean-ins where we not only demonstrated and shared out what we were learning, but we also were able to learn and share those particular skills to capture that knowledge and wisdom that was building on the team. And I really think that it demystified this learning as this once in a lifetime siloed experience to actually demonstrate and share what you're learning and be inspired by what was happening. And I really appreciate what you mentioned just about understanding the accessibility to learning nowadays, right? You know, you don't have to go get that degree to only learn a thing. You've got incredible online resources like Udemy, to Skillshare, to even short form courses that can give you that access in a bite-sized amount of time, and you can apply that back to back. And from an organizational perspective, there's a lot of research that demonstrates that learning is best initiated on a bite-sized instance. So even though we're noticing a high influx of data that says employees want training, they also don't need to be inundated with weekly series, right? As the turnaround to implementation is really challenging. And so there is data to show that about 36% of organizations engage in learning at least once a month, and statistically, 25 to 30% of employees want learning at least on a quarterly basis. So no pressure to feel like you gotta, bite off the whole mountain here and create the world's most robust program. It's really just about being intentional to identify what does my staff want to learn, what structures do we have in place to bring that about, and how can we just create that series of learning so that we're meeting that need, but also creating enough space for folks to turn that work around.
Have you seen that there are, besides doing that short form chunking, are there ways to build in the learning into the process in a way that doesn't supersede the productivity of the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of integration. So when you're thinking about building out training and professional development initiatives, I would encourage leaders and employers to focus on what are our top priorities within the next year and next quarter, and incentivizing particular values or actions that can upskill that particular work. And so, for example, as we know, AI is everywhere, okay? From healthcare to retail to even tech. And so, let's say your company is looking to integrate AI. What would it look like to bring in a facilitator on some best practices on how to use AI tools to be productive at work, right? Or maybe your organization is navigating some change and it's requiring a lot of project management and different levels of communication. And so, what would it look like, pending your budget, to either purchase certain change management courses for your team, or focusing on core elements of the change management process that might be most proximate to your employees, and focus on those modules or ideas for a quarter or for a year, and encourage your employers to boost that into their personal development plan and talk about that culture of learning. And something I want to highlight too is that, learning is a continuous journey. And the best organizations that can bolster that perspective is if it starts not only from the top and from the bottom, and you just incentivize learning new things, trying new things, and implementing how those skills can bring those connections best to life by building out those strategies in areas that are most proximate to your employers slash employees.
For a solopreneur or freelancer, what would this look like?
Yeah, so I love this because I am a solopreneur as well. And so my encouragement when you're identifying, what's the skill that I want to focus on, or how can I build my own personal development plan? I would encourage you to start with your end user, and in this case, the main client persona that you're working with. And so, for example, for me, I primarily work with Fortune 500 companies, enterprise clients, nonprofits, educational technology. And the pain points for my customers vary based off of the organization that I'm working with. And so, for a corporation that has 1,000 plus employees, for example, their challenge in professional development might be less about the content, but more about the scale, right? And so that could be an opportunity to identify, how can I scale this particular workshop to not lose quality, but increase with quantity and reach that impact, right? Or maybe you are a recent startup founder and you're like, I actually don't know what to do with my hands right now, okay? Like, I'm in this bootstrapping phase, I'm trying to figure out my product market fit. Where do I start? And I would encourage you to lean into those pain points and identify opportunities for learning, whether it's a mentorship, executive sponsorship, right? Joining a local consortium of learners, even through Founded in FoCo here, to build relationships with other startup founders who can pour that internal wisdom with you as you're building that knowledge practice. So I wouldn't shy away from feeling like you don't know all the things. That's actually a great starting point, and it can help you prioritize what are those top 2 to 3 skills that will help me be successful either in my role or in the community that I'm connected with.
I love that the integration approach, and making sure that you're focusing not only on your company's goals, but your personal growth goals, and maybe even some weak points. Like you said, I don't know what to do with my hands right now. We got to figure out something, And when you're wearing so many hats, from janitor to CEO, everything can be so crazy to prioritize, and it makes it really difficult to understand, like, what are my particular elements of skill that I'm either missing or lacking that can give me a boost or get me out of a rut, or other things like that. Along with this paradigm of integrating learning into processes, integrating learning into your day-to-day work, and making sure that you're identifying the goals as your sort of targets for learning, have you seen that there are other things that assist with setting those goals or setting those priorities, other systems that team well with this?
Absolutely. So the first system in the system of systems here is to get clear on how can the learning either enhance or deepen the practice that has already been established. And hearing earlier when I spoke about the statistics where we notice that there's a high need for training, but there is an invitation for this to happen at least once a month to like several points per quarter, you don't want to feel like you have to, create a mountain by the end of the day. This is really just about using training to either enhance or up-level practices to take that organization to the next level. And so once you're able to identify what are those top of line skills to enhance your employee well-being, I would then encourage you to incorporate that within your strategic plan so that it isn't something that's lost out, 6 to 8 months from now. It's something that you are intentionally curating over the course of your work span. And I like to think about this as well as your company's own personal development plan and bringing that down to your individual professional development plan. And in my experience, training feels the most valuable when it's something that people can use, apply, and it's relevant to the role, okay? I mean, let's be honest. How many of us have been to a training and you're like, this could have either been an email or I didn't really get anything out of it, or like, this was a great session, but when I go back to my cube or I log on to my Zoom call, I actually need a strategy that I can apply in that moment. And so the more clear you can get about what is going to best enhance your workspace, I would then encourage you to use that to plan what actions and strategies will be most beneficial to your organization and your team.
I think you hinted at something here, Brittany, which is that you can have a personal development plan, even if your organization hasn't quite got there yet. You can still develop yourself and your own skills, right?
I love that. Absolutely. And I feel like when we think about the career journey, right, it's often spoken about in terms of a linear perspective. And I actually want to shake the status quo here and challenge everyone to think less of your journey from a linear perspective and more of your journey as a career portfolio. And when you think of it as a portfolio, there's a sense of ownership where, including your current role or your passion areas, you can then be more intentional on the projects you tap yourself into, working more closely with your manager to identify those stretch projects. And even quite frankly, we are in the age of the side hustle era. So if you can't get all of that in your job, that's even better. How can you build that muscle in your side hustle or your passion projects to expand those skill sets in your career portfolio? And the best way I like to think about it is if you had it your way today and you're zoomed out 5 years from now, what role are you in? What type of work are you doing? Who are you connected with? Get it all the way down to the socks, okay? What are you wearing? How are you feeling? What rooms are you in? And use that vision to then scale backwards to say, how can I utilize my experience to build that learning through my personal career portfolio? And it will, again, help you just enhance that training, identify what will help you be productive, but also unlock the best and what is most proximate to you versus feeling like you just got to sign up for the things for the sake of doing it. The more intentional you can be, the better you'll be in enhancing yourself and unlocking the best in yourself within your own training.
Talk to me about cross-domain learning. So it may not be immediately applicable to your particular job, but let's say you're in accounting, finance, you need to know more about sales and marketing, and or you perceive that it may be beneficial for you to learn about those things. What would a learning program look like that was maybe interdepartmental or cross-domain learning so that, as you said, side hustle era, you know that you have skills in other areas that you might be able to bring back into work in your primary job. Those skills might be immediately transferable, they might not, or they might be tangential and allow you to level up in a completely different way. So what would a learning process look like that was cross-domain or interdepartmental in that way?
I love this as a question because this taps into the top two strengths and skills employers are looking for in 2024. The first one is communication, and the second one is teamwork. And I'm going to add an asterisk to teamwork and say cross collaboration. And so when you're thinking about building and developing those cross-departmental learning initiatives, I would encourage you to focus on what I like to call the 3 wins. First of all, just from a personal perspective, How can you develop a training or learning path that supports you and your own career portfolio? The second win would be what is going to be a win for your particular department. Let's say this is accounting. So you have a certain revenue goal by the end of the year that you want to reach. And then a third win is for your cross collaboration team. So maybe it's marketing, right? And so one example on how you might do that, for example, I work for as a career development strategist for a global ed tech bootcamp by day. And there are multiple pathways of learning that blend artificial intelligence, marketing, career admissions, and even career coaching that serves one goal. And we consistently have opportunities to engage in training on productivity tools for AI that not only expedites the admission process, it expedites the copy for marketing, to even best practices with how do even me as a career coach develop my job seekers. And so at first glance, these pathways might not seem connected, but in some, by giving one consistent tool and approach to all departments, every department is speaking the same language, which thus can enhance that productivity and identify pathways of collaboration. There's a lens and perspective that a marketing expert has that an accounting might not have, and vice versa. So your goal here with these programs is to decrease those silos, merge these two perspectives of expertise, and build out that productivity over time.
Tell us about your specific talk at Founded in FoCo, because we're so excited to hear from you. We want to know all about it. And who do you want in that room? And what's the key action item that they will be taking out of that room with them?
My session will be all about AI tools, and specifically through the lens of the best AI tools to both enhance your productivity and help you stay organized as either a founder, manager, individual contributor, or fan of Founded in FoCo, whichever you like. I will be here to, one, just kind of dispel the myths of what's happening in AI, and two, participants will walk away with at least 8 websites and or AI tools that they can integrate to help you save time, be more productive, and enhance your own practice. And so I am really excited for all individuals, primarily my startup founders here who might already be strapped for cash and time, to those who might be in your leadership capacity looking for ways to better afford your time management. So I'll be sharing some best practices for productivity to help you save time, enhance your practice, and also just bring out the best in yourself by having those clear systems and tools to be successful.
We were a little bit intentional with how we sort of navigated this conversation, because I think that if we were to have just dived straight into AI, right, that is such an all-encompassing, all-engrossing topic. But we really purposefully, when you hear about AI, the human element of learning and knowledge gathering and critical thinking about goal setting and how to enhance like your own productivity or setting your own learning processes. AI can for those who are using it maybe incorrectly, can be used as a shortcut to skip a lot of those steps. And that's really not what it's for. If you don't come at it from the holistic standpoint of this is a learning process, it's a paradigm that can be integrated into your existing process to elevate your work in a particular way. Still very much human oversight required, but I love the concept of you can not only leverage these tools, but also integrate it into a way of augmenting goals that your company has, your personal learning, your personal growth as well. So that it sounds like a fascinating session, and I am super psyched to see it. Where can we find out more about you and your business?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for me at Brittany Dawson. You will see my signature style, which is some hoop earrings there. So if you see that in the profile picture, that is me. I can also be found on Instagram at Brittany_864. And I also have my personal website, www.brittanyDawsoncoaching.com, which admittedly, website is still under construction, but it's still up and running. So feel free to check me out there. And I will be at this year's Founded in FoCo on Friday, March 8th. So stay tuned on the session details, and I would love to see you there. And just want to share one final note that if you're hearing this term AI and you're like, yikes, the robots are taking over. What can I do? I just want to acknowledge that you're bringing you wherever you go. So AI is more of an enhancer rather than the only standalone product. And so just encourage you to don't lose that human element. And when we talk about those tools, feel free to practice choice on which tools work best with your process, your working style, your lifestyle, and just consider out of these tools, which one can best enhance me and my work so that I can then do the best I can in the job that I'm connected to.
Really, in just the past year, these tools have sort of like inundated the market in much the same way that I think when the first iPhone came out, it's very much that same feel of like, oh, look, I can have this thing in my pocket all the time. And it's this magic piece of glass that can connect me to the internet and all of my music. And the consequences of that are only now sort of becoming known if we take too deep of a dive, right? So, the teen mental health crisis through social media is aggravating a lot of these, peer-to-peer social constructs that we have seen occur for bullying or other things like that. And the consequences of long-term AI, we don't know yet, but I think that the way that you've approached this is absolutely perfect, is that you have a choice and you can choose to personalize this as you go.
I love that. And I am also from the South too. So bear with me while I imagine we're like sitting up in our rocking chairs with some sweet tea in our hands here. But, another way to think about even everything else that you're going to be learning here with the Founded in FoCo is that you are grits, okay? Grits. And there's a big discussion and debate on whether or not butter goes in grits or sugar goes in grits. I'm personally more of a butter, savory type of girl, but you're going to be people who are like sugar all day. Some people might add hot sauce in there. You might just make it your own, okay? But I share this to say that grits are a classic in of its own down south. And regardless of how you make it, it's really up to you to personalize it, make it taste good to you. And in that, you're going to be a plain bowl of grits when you kick off your Founded in FoCo sessions as you occur. But by the end of the week, my hope would be that maybe you start to add a little butter, or maybe you've been a sugar person and now you want to add some vegetables in there. Who knows? But just like be open to that process and engage in the learning, take what you can, eat the meat, throw away the bone, and what will stick will stick. But ultimately, it's just about being in community with other thought leaders, thinking differently about problems or opportunities to solve them, and customizing that grit. And in this case, your work or your company, and leading with that open-mindedness to be successful.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. And like most great recipes, as long as you include some love in it, I think that it turns out tasty.
Absolutely. And now I'm like, I've been talking about grits. I might need to get some after this call. All right.
It's a good time for a run, I think. Let's go. For more great entrepreneurial insights and interviews with amazing entrepreneurs just like Brittany, please join us at Founded in FoCo, March 4th through 8th at the Fort Collins Senior Center. And also check out the podcast for more amazing insights from local entrepreneurs. We can't wait to see you there. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in FoCo podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.